Welcome, everyone, and a special welcome to our distinguished guests, Gabriel, Laurent, and Sylvie. And my name is Lily Lee. I'm the Managing Director of the PowerWeb Institute. So you can see the team here. And for those new to us, PowerWeb it is a platform and cross-faculty interdisciplinary dedicated to intelligent, integrated, and inclusive energy systems. So you can see that we have many activities. Lunch lecture is one of them. Feel free to join our other activities. Today, we are extremely delighted and honored to have Mr. Gabriel Bareux here join us for this lunch lecture. He has such a long, impressive CV, and if I read it all, we would be here all day. So focused on the highlights, only 2 pages, you can see. Okay, Gabriel serves as the R&D Director and is a member of the Executive Committee at RTE, the French Transmission System Operator. He built his career on the prestigious TU Foundation, holding engineering degrees from both the Political University of Renewable and the Imperial College London. My French friends have told me that graduating from a top school like Renewable is a badge of honor for life. You receive respect whether you are in your 20s, 40s, or 60s. I wish I had gone to such a university. With that deep technical expertise and strong leadership, Gabriel has shaped the European power system for over 20 years. Today, he leads the charge on critical frontier like grid resilience and the supply chain geopolitics. A champion of open innovation, he has co-founded the Linux Foundation Energy. Please join me in welcoming a visionary energy leader, Gabriel Bareux.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? It's perfect. So I was very ambitious for this talk. Maybe it will be too long. I hope it will be an overview of the energy transition in France, maybe in Europe, and the related R&D challenges. So I'm Gabriel Bareux. I'm the Executive Director of the R&D. So skip this one. What's at stake for the energy transition? First, I want all of us, I know that you're knowledgeable, but let's take a step backward and look at what needs to be done. We, transmission system operator, we do operate the system. We keep the lights on. This is the most complex system ever designed by mankind. So says the National Science Foundation in the US. Very complex, very essential, and we have to change everything in the next 25 years. So it's like taking off in Paris in 2025, landing in Australia in 2040, and while flying, you have to change the engine, the wings, and everything. That's what needs to be done. And when something goes wrong, you may have problems. I see the fake image, but still you see a good illustration that there was something wrong there. And when there is something wrong in the power system, that's what's happened. No transportation, no telecommunication, no shopping, not everything. That's very essential to our lives. Take a step backwards first. That's a picture, I guess, of an industrial city, maybe London in the 19th. So it was a very dark city, very gray, very unhealthy. And well, it has to change. So I know all of you know about this famous electricity war between Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla for the World Fair Innovation in Chicago end of the 19th century. And in the end, fantastic, and the winning of Nikola Tesla with this invention of the power transformer that is able to transmit large amount of electricity over large intensity. So they were able to cap the power of hydroelectricity on the mountain and bring that to Chicago. And then a few years after, that's the paintings of Paris from Van Gogh and Pissarro, the City of Light. Well, it had changed. And what a glory. That's another painting that's in the Muséum d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris. It's a painting by Raoul Dufy called La Fée Électricité. And it's a recalling of hundreds of inventions and hundreds of scientifics that were needed for this first electricity revolution that brings light to the city. And that's wonderful. Okay, that's for the past. And what about the current situation? First, climate change. I mean, well, this is a picture coming from the IPCC, International Panel on Climate Change. Well, the climate has already changed. It will continue to change. But what's important there is to mention that, well, we still have to decide whether we go for a very low impact or very high impact. And the story for us to decide. That's for us, our generation, to decide whether or not there will be radical transformation with a very low emission or extreme variation. I mean, and if you really look at the picture and the numbers, we're speaking about billions of lives that will be impacted. And that's for us to decide. And it's already happening. I mean, that's real picture of wildfires in Hawaii and flooding elsewhere. And that's only one of the challenges that we have. I mean, climate change is there. That's a picture of the planetary limits. The safe operating space for Earth is this green area there. Climate change is there. And that's a study coming from science, from nature, I guess, but there are many other studies that show the same things. We have a problem about climate change, but the top three priorities that we do have as mankind is novel entities. Novel entities is a subtle word for pollution, plastic, metals, top priority. The second one is biosphere integrity. We are experiencing the sixth massive extinction of life on Earth at speed that is unprecedented. The fifth one has been caused by a meteorite, as this one is caused by mankind. And we are an animal. Yeah. We do depend on that as well. And the third one is this biochemical flows, but agriculture, phosphorus and nitrogen. We do put a lot on that on the soil to grow the vegetables that are eaten by animals that we do eat, and then all of that goes in our toilets, goes in the water, on the rivers and in the sea. And that's a top priority as well. So we do have to change all our energy system because of the climate change. We have to care about not having an impact on biodiversity and other things. And we have to do that transformation, it is energy transition in a very disturbed environment. We do have war in Europe. There is a commercial war between China and the US, and a very hostile environment from China and the US as well, towards Europe at least. And we do depend on a lot of rare earths and other metals for the energy transition. So we do have to make the transition, but in a very, very disturbed environment. So do we need to be pessimistic or optimistic? Well, I prefer to be optimistic, and sometimes things are changing. For example, electricity is already the top carrier of energy in the world. There are a lot of evolution, innovation in the electrotechnical side. And that's one thing. Now, this one is in French, sorry, but it's about the exportation. If you look and it compares the exportation of the US fossil fuel exportation and the exportation of China on green tech, I mean batteries and cars. And for the first time last year, the exportation of clean tech technology by China has exceeded the exportation of fossil fuels by the US. So the things are moving on. And for example, in Europe, for the first time last December, in December 2025, the number of cars that were sold in Europe, the majority, for the first time, there was a majority of electrical vehicles, more numerous than fossil fuels. So it changed. And sometimes it changed very rapidly. For example, see the picture of New York, beginning of the 19th century. And this one, and you have to look at all the horses, and there is only one fossil fuel car there. And 13 years later, there are all cars and only one horse. So sometimes things can change, and very rapidly. So do we have to be optimistic or pessimistic? I don't know. We have to be lucid. We have to change very rapidly, but we are not doomed. Let's to still do some things. And my hope is that the next Raoul Dufy will perhaps do a painting about what is happening right now in Europe and do something like that. There will be a new painting of all the innovation that were needed to succeed in the transition that needs to be done. Now have a look at RTE and its R&D and what we're doing, because there are a lot of things to do, I mentioned. So RTE, the French transmission system operators, we do own, operate, and maintain the power grid in France from the 400 kV down to 3 kVs. That's more than 100,000 kilometers of overhead lines. It's approximately 3,000 substations all over France. We have 52 electrical interconnection with 6 neighboring countries, soon to be 7, because there will be a new interconnection with Ireland in the coming years. We're approximately 10,000 employees with a turnover of approximately 6 billion a year. And we have an investment of 4 billion euros in 2025, 3 billion of that being investment in hardware. There are also investment in IoT solution and others. And if you look at the R&D itself, it's more modest. That's 16 million euros of OPEX, operational expenditure yearly. We are approximately 150 R&D employees, and we have about 30 theses ongoing in my division. We have one mindset: success comes from curiosity, concentration, perseverance, and self-criticism. That's our motto, but that's also the one from Albert Einstein. So we do copy when it's an inspiration. There is so much to do that we are very, I mean, that's very good. We have 60 million, we do a lot of things, but what needs to be done is far beyond our reach of what can be done by 150 employees. So we do have a broad ecosystem of R&D partners, academic ones on the top layers, and it is national, French ones, European or international ones. And we do have collaboration as well with companies there, small ones or big ones. If you look at our cooperation at the international level, it was very much US-centric for the last 15 years, and we do have to reconsider that. So Florent is the one in charge of partnership inside RTE, and we will cut off our US expenditure by 50% in the next 6 months because we do have to adapt to the geopolitical situation. And we will double down on Europe. So a lot of bilateral collaboration with university and industrial, but also we do believe in larger collaboration, multilateral ones, sorry. So in 2017, we started collaboration with the Linux Foundation in the US, and we founded a new foundation within the Linux Foundation dedicated to the energy domain, which is called Linux Foundation Energy. At the very beginning, it was only the two of us, the Linux Foundation plus RTE. But now, last year, when there was a meeting, there were about 400 people joining the meeting. That's incredible. Just yesterday, we received a message from Tenet that says that there will be a new solution for the control room based on building blocks from the Linux Foundation Energy that was first built by RTE. So it's working. It's working. And we do have as well an association on collaborative research in Europe. This one is mostly IT solution. This one is collaborative R&D that was set up 3 years ago. We were only 8 of us at the very beginning, and now we are more than 40 partners. It's developing quite well. We are lucky enough to have TU Delft associated among the 8 founding fathers of CRECIM, and we are lucky enough to have Peter Palinski as the vice president of the association. He's developing very rapidly, and thanks, Peter, for all the job you're doing on that. So now let's have a look at some of the goals that we have. So we have a new strategic R&D roadmap for 2025 to 2028. We have 3 pillars, I would say, 3 axes. The first one is to enable a successful implementation of RT 10-year network development plan. We have to invest a lot. So how we make sure that the investment is good for the society, good creation, there is good value for money. And we do support that. I will explain how. We also support the effective transformation of power system operation. Basically, what we want to avoid is we want to avoid Spanish situation there. We want to transform the energy sector, but we try to avoid having big troubles. And we have to consider the major external risk factors about the supply chain or about the geopolitical situation, because when we need to be successful in terms of technology, but we need to have the means to implement that. So the first pillar is to enable the successful implementation of our network development plan. The main drivers is, well, I'd say decarbonization, massive deployment of renewable, a strengthened energy sovereignty, and reindustrialization. So we need to develop both generation on one side and the load on the other side at massive scale. EVs, industries, and so on. So we do a lot of forecast studies for that to advise the government on what needs to be done. So we identify 3 main scenarios, and the lowest one, the one that combines both renewable and nuclear, is a public investment of approximately 60 billion euros per year, every year from now on for 2016. That's what needs to be done if we want to full decarbonization of France. For the driver, so we have to invest in the grid, more than 100 billion euros in the next 15 years. And well, 100 billion euros, because that's only what France can afford. But if we really have to look at what needs to be done for the next 15 years, if we are doing the same system as we are with the technology that we have today, it should be 200 billion. So we have to invest something new solution to lower the cost for the society. And it's a huge increase for us because we are used to have an investment of approximately 500 million euro in 2005. Last year we have an investment of 4 billion euro, and we need to reach 7 billion euro per year from 2028, and it needs to continue at that level for at least the next 15 years. So you will have the picture, that's the decomposition of what needs to be done, whether it is offshore grid, IT solution, extra high voltage. You have all the figures, but I won't be quick. But you have there, you see this trend of investment, what needs to be done. We have to find new solutions. The main drivers, massive grid connection, renewable generation on one side, but also industry on the other side. AI data center as well. A lot of demand for connection on one side. Yeah, I know. Decarbonization was not supposed to be for AI, but they are coming for. We have to adapt the extra high voltage grid because you have a development of generation offshore grid there or PV there, and you have the big loads in Paris or industrial area in the north of France or south of France. So you have big flows there. And that's the condensation frequency that you have already on the overhead lines, 400 kV. So what are we doing there? And sorry, I forgot that. We also had to renew our grid because our grid was designed back in the 70s and 90s with the electro-nuclear programming in France, but more than 20% of our grid is more than 70 years old. So we have to renew that, and it was built 70 years back in the mindset that there was no climate change. Doesn't exist. Nobody was speaking about that. But nowadays, we already have 37% of our grid that is exposed to overheating. Okay, and the climate will continue. So we have to invest a lot to decrease that level of risk from 37% of our grid that is exposed to overheating to 0% in 2060. So we have to reinforce the grid itself. But we have also to adapt to flooding. We have approximately 18% of our substations that are exposed to flooding nowadays. And we want to slowly manage that to 7% in 2060. We still accept some risk in 2060 because when you have a problem on one substation, there are still other roads to meet the loads. So what do we do there? First, we do optimize management and grid development pathway. We have methods and tools to make sure that we are investing at the right level, in the right area, taking care about what are the health index of all our equipments. And already by making this investment in software decision management, that's an investment of approximately 20 million euros. We were able to decrease the level of investment in power transformer for more than 1 billion. So that's, as an R&D Director, that's a good value for money. And we have other use cases for other equipments. So we believe that using this software tool, we are able to decrease the level of investment by approximately 2 billion for the next years. We do also support the performance of maintenance operation with automated grid inspection, new technology for grid maintenance, decision. On the 10,000 employees that we do have within our team, about half of that is maintenance people. Okay, 5 some people doing maintenance, so they visit, they look at some corrosion on the towers, some problem on the substation, and perhaps these people, and that's a key thing from the top management, they want to use these people not to do, I would say, kind of silly things that can be done by satellites, imaging, or drones. We want to use that people to deploy new equipment. Okay, so we want to make sure that these people are there to deploy new equipment and not taking care of looking at the old equipment, because that can be automated very easily. We do provide as well hardware and digital solution for the efficient adaptation of the existing grid. Those are the concept that we developed within RTE about this new control area. It's approximately a zone of 10 to 20 different substations. And when I try to explain that to my top management, it's like, for when you are having a car, you have the protection layer, it's at the substation level. It's very basic equipment, the safety belt, the airbag, that try to avoid any damage for the people and for the equipment. We do already have that. We do have a kind of ways for the electricity sector. I mean, I'm there, I want to be there, which is the main trajectory to go there. But what we developed and was what not existing is that it's auto cruiser. So we have this zonal area. We are taking measurements of what is flowing through our lines. And if we approach the limits of the overhead lines, then we decrease the generation of the renewables there. So it's closed loop control already deployed in more than 30 areas in France, and we have a plan to develop that on 70 areas of France to cover all of France with this technology. And that technology has enabled us to save 7 billion euros of investments in hardware technology, new overhead lines. So you are using, basic control and strategies, IT solution to avoid building new lines. Overall, of this technology is less than 50 million euros on one side, and you are able to save 7 billion on the other side. So we are developing as well the virtualization of the power stations, of the substation, sorry. So substation, if you're looking at substation on the right side, it's one function, one device. And then you're feeding the substation with all the devices, and you have a substation. Okay. So it's very complicated to upload, to change. But now we have the technology to replace all of that with only 3 computers and applications of that. So basic idea is to move from a situation where you have one phone, one agenda, one alarm, and you pack everything on one virtualized machine, what is one iPhone, and you want to do the same thing on the substation. See? Okay, and then you are able to save a lot of money because it's less costly to deploy, less costly to maintain. And we are not so far. We already reached Tier 7 on that, so we are going for demonstration in the next years. We have to invent new technology for transmission lines, cables, substation, offshore wind, or I would say supraconductivity as well, to have big corridors with high density of power. Okay, well, that's something we have looked at to accelerate. And we do work as well on the public acceptance of green infrastructure. Was mentioned that with Peter and Lily at lunch. When we want to connect a new industrial area in France, that takes 8 years. 2 years is for construction work, and 6 years is for public consultations. And that's way too long for what needs to be done. So what can we bring? We have people working on social science there. Can we bring some added value to the society with transportation and so on, that we make our overhead lights more acceptable to them. Okay, power system operation, I'll be very quick. We have a lot of deployment of renewables there, viability, uncertainty. Just one example, when we have a surplus of generation happening in France, we have some negative prices on the market, on the wholesale spot market, and then suddenly we have a drop of the renewable generation. The latest record that we have in October is that we lost 11.5 gigawatts of generation in less than 10 minutes. And then when it goes like that, I mean, all the flows, all the voltages, all the frequencies, all over. We are very close to the limit. We have massive introduction of power electronics everywhere, HVDC or every new generation or every new load. When we're speaking about the AI data center, it's power electronics. Okay. That changed the very basic of the system. We need to have a massive deployment of demand flexibility. We have a lot of variability on the generation side, so we need to match that with demand flexibility on the other side. And overall, what we want to avoid, is we want to avoid that situation. What do we do? A lot of decision support tools, the waves of electricity for our control center in Paris. We want them to have forecast, weather forecast, generation forecast, load forecast, and to decide which is the best trajectory that they can operate the system in the next hours. So we have a lot of support decision tools there. We also to maintain the dynamic performance of the grid. So basically, because of this power electronics, a lot of the power electronics nowadays is a grid following power electronics. So it's still following the frequency of the power system that is still produced by the synchronous machine. But in a world where there is no synchronous machine, you have nobody to follow. So you need to invent and to deploy grid forming technology. And we have to deploy and enable the massive deployment of flexibility. And that will be my last 3 slides about what needs to be done. Okay, the context, we have climate change, we have this competition for metal rare earths, so we have to identify what are our vulnerabilities there. And there is geopolitical and economic environments that needs to be considered. So what we are doing, we are using a lot of model to model the climate change. I mean, in Europe, we don't have to be shy. We have the best modeling 10 years development plan in the world. I mean, if you're looking at the US and what they're doing and what they're doing in Europe, we are far above them. We don't have to be shy, but we continue to improve. We have to analyze our vulnerabilities when it comes to our supply chain transformation. And we have also to consider new opportunities for new game changer technology. Okay, what about direct air capture? What about geothermal technology? What about hydrogen and so on? I mean, that's not for today. That's not for the day after today, but there may be real game changer in the future if we want to have this energy transition in France and in Europe. And that's my last slides. I was very, very quick. Sorry for that, but we will have all the slides. But now, if we want to have some question and have a little chat, please do not hesitate.
Excellent. That was a brilliant presentation, very insightful, lots of food for thought. We can now open the floor to questions. Please raise your hand. I will come with the microphone so that it ends up in the recording. So here we have one already.
I had one question about the massive swings in the generation. So it's that you have negative pricing, you lose about 12 gigawatts of generation, which is about 1 Netherlands generation, basically. And I was wondering how it works, because at least the way I understand the power market is if you basically you sell your power and then you just cut it up, you will be penalized in the imbalance pricing, so you don't deliver what you sold. So I was this like, like feed-in there, so that people is like, oh yeah, it's not as negative, so don't get a feed, so just cut it off, or how does it work?
The problem is that that's not pure market. There is also regulation there, and the renewable in France, they got some incentives to disconnect when there is a negative price, and they are very grateful to that because they've got some money in addition to that. So it's there are the wholesale market, European wholesale markets, and you have also national regulation there, and that's something a lot of people are speaking of the European markets. That's very good, but when you're looking at the renewables, they are very much dependent on national subsidies that are not harmonized there. So what we look, for example, in France, because of this French regulation, we are losing a lot of renewables in France, but nothing changed in Germany, for example. So yes, that's not a pure economic thing. There are also external drivers that explain the situation in France. So we are discussing with the national authorities to change that law. But to change the law, I mean, to change the incentives, people say, okay, I invested because I was expecting so much money, but now I'm going to change the rules. I have problems with my bank and my investors, so do not do.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Gabriel. I'm a PhD student here, and I was curious about the developments that you showed about control and automation. You showed the middle control layer and mentioned some control areas within your network. I'm not really sure how France is separating control areas, but I wanted to ask, can you clarify more which are these like local control areas and what is the objective if you're talking about here?
So basically, once upon a time, there were only two layers. So the protection layers at the substation on our 3,000 substation there, and there is still the national control center in Paris, and we were able to control the system with only a few operators. They were calling the nuclear station, please shut down, please ramp up, ramp down. Only a dozen or 50 substation, but now we have millions of installation installed everywhere in France. So what we've done, we looked at a kind of decomposition of the problem, but an electrical one. So we have the 7,000 nodes of our grid in France, and we make a decomposition of that, and what are the most constrained zones. And on those zones, we deploy this kind of local control that are taking measurement coming from the field. And if we are crossing the limits of the flows, for example, on our overhead lines, then we tell the generators to limit a bit, just to make sure that they will not go over the limits. So it's closer control, taking measurement from the field, model predictive control that we are deploying on the field. There are already 30 zones that have been deployed, and we will fill the full decomposition of France will be filled with this kind of zone decomposition.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vincent. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm working for DMAC, and I was wondering, I focus on storage, and I was wondering from my network operator viewpoint, are you first allowed to own some storage assets? And second, what do you see the role of storage in the system planning in the future in France?
So no, not allowed to own or directly operate grid storage. So far, the situation in France, we have approximately 1 gigawatt of storage in the grid, but I would say that 3/4 of that being on the distribution side and only a quarter of that being on the transmission side. but we do have a portfolio of demand for connection for, I guess it is 11 gigawatts of storage coming to the grid. And the 3/4 of that will be on the transmission, connected to the transmission grid. So it will probably help to manage, this demand for flexibility to manage the balance between generation and demand. It will surely help a lot, but that's only for the market players. I hope it will ease our situation of not losing so much generation. But we do require on the connection side that they go when it's needed for grid forming technology. So Sylvie, our director on power system stability, is having a demonstration with one big storage in Brittany, in the western side of France, when there is a low connectivity or low stability because there are not so many synchronous machines there. And we do deploy grid forming technology there that really helps in stabilizing the grid. So it's we've done the studies and it's under demonstration. It started.
It will start second half of the year.
Okay, it will start second half of this year.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the talk. So Simon from TU Delft. I have a question actually on all your in-house development, right? So you're doing quite a bit of in-house tooling, and I just wonder if you can describe how does that change your relationship to vendors? You're no longer their big cooperative customer, you're a competitor in a way. How does that work for you? And how do you see that evolving?
We have a long story of in-house development for, I would say, our core business software decision-making tools. And we are very, that's great because frankly speaking, when you're speaking with Siemens or with Schneider or with others on, can you design me a decision support tool just to lower my capex investment in the grid? Will they do? A software system is only 10 million system at most. Okay, and we have billions of investment in the grid. They do prefer to us to invest in the grid first, and second, we are a monopoly there. We are the only one to operate the grid. So I do say that we are the most knowledgeable one on how to operate the French grid. So I want my R&D experts to work very closely with the operators in the control room to make sure that we are designing the tool that they need. Basically, I don't know if that answers your question.
Joachim, postdoc here. I'm wondering, as a researcher, I would like to see methods that we develop to be deployed. What do you see from your perspective that we maybe overlook of times? So what would you wish research and researchers would be more aware of?
That's why we're here. We have a 2-day exploratory tour with within TU Delft, so we will have discussion with many professors. So I'm going to highlight what are our challenges, what for the Netherlands and for Germany, we will probably be able to reuse that stuff for our own stuff in France. It'd be very good for me. That I'm here to explore that with all of you and to launch new collaboration.
Okay, thanks a lot. We are right in time. I think it's Peter has one more.
If we have.
We do have time for one more brief question.
Yeah. You mentioned you're working on with forecasting, so you said weather forecasting and load forecasting. So
Yeah.
Is it also that you do price forecasting of the markets because they have an impact? If, for instance, the renewables disconnect with the negative prices, but that's a bit of a
We do not do price forecasting. If I would do, I would be, and if I would be successful, I would be very rich. I will be a trader of energy.
Okay. I think I wanted to, let's say, remark how great was to hear this calls for collaboration for open source software and tools. That's really encouraging and inspiring. And with this final remark, I want to thank you again for a brilliant presentation. Let's make an applause for our wonderful. We might have additional questions. I think we might have a few more minutes for, let's say, offline discussion. We close the formal session, but we don't in a rush. There's no other lecture here, so you can hang out for a few more minutes. Thank you. See you at the next lecture in March.